Hey everyone, it's Kevin, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about portion control and how to eat smaller portions for weight loss. If you want to control what you eat, control your body, and control your life, then hit the subscribe button so you never miss a video. And don't forget to check out my challenge, Stop Overeating in 7 Days. There is a link below, and if you want to speak with me, there is also a link in the description box. Eating smaller portions is absolutely critical if you want to lose weight. Because you gain weight because you weren't paying attention to portions. You were eating too large portions. You didn't know what your portions were. You were completely unaware. You were just on autopilot. And if you're watching this because you're an overeater or a binge eater, then portion control is definitely something that you want to pay attention to. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand what a proper portion is and how to eat smaller portions each and every time that you eat. The first thing you need to do is quantify the portions. How big are the portions that you're eating? This is where I think a food scale really comes into handy. A food scale plus a nutrition guide or like a calorie counter like the one at Self Magazine has a really good one, and I'll put a link in the description box. I don't use food scales all the time. It is good, however, if you're eating something for the first time or you don't know what your portions are or you're not sure what a proper portion is. This is where a food scale can be really useful. Here's the food scale that I have, Ozeri. It's not a bad food scale. I got it for $30 either on Amazon or Bed Bath & Beyond. I'm not sure. You just tap it once and then it weighs it. You can do milliliters, grams, whatever. That's what I like about modern food scales, is that you can weigh stuff to the gram and know how much is in it. Now, you don't have to do this forever, but it is good at first time. So if you're eating something at night, maybe you're eating, I don't know, like me, I eat rice and beans because I'm really simple and I'm plant-based and I don't like to eat really complicated things. I will just, if I wanted to know what a proper portion was, I would weigh it before, weigh it after. Now here's the thing about weighing stuff. Just the act of tracking, just the fact that you're weighing it, it actually leads to a spontaneous reduction in what you're eating because now you're accountable for stuff. I remember one thing that really helped me eat less junk food, like M&Ms. I like my M&Ms, sorry. Was weighing it before and then weighing it after and then realizing how much I ate. Now I have a really good intuitive sense of how many M&Ms I can eat. A lot of times I just eat like 8, 9, maybe 10 at most because I know they're really dense and they're really easy to overeat, so I'm really cautious about it. If you don't want to use a scale, then err on the side of caution. If you're not sure what a proper portion is, you can't weigh something, like if you're at a restaurant, just assume that it has more salt, sugar, and fat than what you think. I always like to bring up the example of the vegan salad at Cheesecake Factory. Cheesecake Factory, of course, everything's big, and the vegan Cobb salad seems like a sensible alternative, but it still has over 1,000 calories because they use so much avocado and so much oil, and that's a lot of fat. Even if you're eating something that seems really light and reasonable, just assume it has more than what you think. That's why you should never eat the full serving at a restaurant. Maggiano's is probably the worst. Nobody really talks about that, but it is bad if you look at their nutrition data. If you're eating stuff at a restaurant, assume they put in a ton of oil. So just be cautious, eat less than what you want. My next tip for you is don't eat until you're hungry. This is easier said than done, especially if you have an eating disorder and you're so disconnected from your hunger. This is why I like intermittent fasting, 16, 18 hours, because it forces you to wait until you're actually hungry, and it forces you to connect with that hunger. You learn to understand what that hunger is. You know what it feels like to be hungry. You're not eating according to cues. You're not eating according to time. You're not eating according to anything else. You're actually really hungry at that point, and that's a good thing. You should wait until you're hungry. Your hunger mechanism, your hunger cues, they're there. They're waiting for you to claim them. They're not broken. It's not like you need brain surgery. There's no damage in your brain. It's just you have to create new pathways. So I always recommend waiting until you're hungry. Maybe do something really important first thing in the morning, take care of the kids, go to the gym, do a big assignment. Get something really important out of the way before you start eating. I always find that to be a really not challenging thing to do, but it's always a form of accomplishment. It's like you waited to accomplish something, to do something important, to complete that work before you started to eat. Don't do the opposite where you eat a big meal before you've done something important. That's like eating Thanksgiving. before you go rake the leaves. You know what I mean? Like, you want to feel like you've earned that food. You've done something. You've accomplished something. Don't overdo it, but get that big assignment out of the way. Brian Tracy likes to say, eat that frog. You know, do that one thing that you don't want to do, like eating a frog. Who's ever done that? But it's just a metaphor. If you really don't want to eat a frog, just do it. One thing that I've tried doing is I take a cold shower before I have dinner. I feel like I've got to do that one last thing, one challenging thing before I have dinner, and then I take the cold shower, I get it out of the way, I eat that frog, and then I have dinner. My next tip for you is eat without distraction. This is also harder than it sounds because in the modern era we have so many things going on at one time. This is a real problem. I think it's bad for mental health. I think it's bad for productivity. We have these devices everywhere, you know, the phone, the laptop, the tablet, whatever else, you know, there's a TV right up here, and it's really hard to stay focused in this day and age. And there's always some other assignment that we need to do, and it's really easy to check email and do work while we eat. It's so common and so pervasive. If you don't believe me, next time you go to a restaurant, next time you go out, look at people who are eating. They're probably looking at their phone. They're not really learning anything. They're not absorbing anything. They're not going to remember anything, but they feel this compulsion to look at their phone while they're eating. If you catch yourself doing that, try not to do that. Here, start with this challenge. Start with 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day when you're only focusing on the meal at hand and what you're eating. Just doing that will actually lead to a reduction in intake because you're paying attention to the food you're eating and you're not distracted. When you're distracted, when you have competing stimuli, it's really easy to overeat because you're not paying attention. This leads me to my next point: assess hunger after each bite. This sounds kind of crazy at first, but it works. And I really do mean every bite. I don't mean every bite for every meal for the rest of your life. That's not what I'm talking about. But when you're trying to control those portions, when you're trying to control what you eat, when you're trying to stop binge eating, this is really important. Take a few bites, assess your hunger. Actually, just do one bite and see what your hunger is. You would be shocked. Because if you're a binge eater, you're an overeater, you think that you need all this food to satisfy your craving, and you think you're going to have insatiable appetite, this insatiable hunger, if you don't have all this food. That's not true. But because the thing is, if you have an eating disorder, you're really disconnected from your hunger. The hunger's there, that appetite mechanism, you know, the hormones and the hypothalamus, that's all working. It's just you're ignoring it. So this is my challenge for you. Eat a meal. Eat one bite, assess your hunger. Eat a second bite, assess your hunger. You would be shocked. I remember I thought I had to have all this food after a fast. I would go 2-3 days without fasting. Yes, I've done that. It's not going to kill you, but you don't have to do it either. And I thought I needed just tons of food, and I didn't. All I needed was a little bit, you know, a bowl of oats sometimes would satisfy, and I would feel good. It would restore my blood sugar levels. I wouldn't feel lethargic. So try eating without distraction and try assessing your hunger after each bite. This is a great exercise to do if you're a chronic overeater, chronic binge eater. My next tip is be aware of cues in your environment. You would be amazed at the amount of unconscious stimuli that can compel us to eat more. When you're at a restaurant, everything is curated. Everything is designed with the intention that you're going to eat more. The presentation, the tablecloths, the colors, the music in the background, the number of people at the table, the way the food is prepared on the plate, the pictures on the menu, the name of the restaurant. They've done research on this stuff, and they continue to do research on this stuff. And these unconscious stimuli can compel us to eat more. This is why people who eat out a lot have a hard time controlling what they eat. I'm going to make another video in the future about that, because sometimes you have no choice. You've got to go out with the coworkers, you've got family, you've got friends, and you can't live like a hermit, you can't live like a monk and say no to all these events. You need to have a social life. Social life's really important. But just be aware that there are a lot of stimuli that are making you eat more. That's why you should always err on the side of caution. when you're eating out, you should always assume that there's more on that plate than what you think. Even if it looks healthy, even if it's that vegan Cobb salad at Cheesecake Factory. Just be careful because they've probably laced it with a lot of oil. Even if it's on the light menu or the skinny menu, just don't believe it. You don't know. Maybe the chef was really liberal with the oil that day. You don't know. So just be cautious. If you're not making it, err on the side of caution. The next thing you need to do is understand the law of caloric density. Every food has a caloric density. And some countries, for example, I know the United Kingdom does this, but every nutrition label says per 100 grams, which I think is great. Here in the United States, for whatever reason, our regulatory agency, the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, they have this really convoluted system. It says they have these arbitrary serving sizes. For example, a bag of chips will say serving size 28 grams. Who eats 28 grams? That's, I think, how many ounces is that? I don't know. I think that's 1 ounce. I think 1 ounce is like 27.6 or whatever. Nobody eats 1 ounce. Okay, it's like 6 chips. Who sits there and eats 6 chips? I do. But only because I know the law of caloric density and I know what portion sizes are. But if you're just starting out, you're not going to know that. Or when you go to the Mexican restaurant and they bring that big basket of hot chips, who can resist those? Oh my god, even I can't resist those. But like 3 chips is probably 120 calories at least. Okay, my point is you need to understand density. So stuff like spinach, broccoli, kale, chard, bok choy, all those green leafy vegetables, it's basically like 0. You could eat that all day every day and you'd still lose a lot of weight. Then you have stuff like carrots and beets and parsnips, that's a little more. Then you have fruits and vegetables, oranges, apples, that's a little more. Then bananas, that's a little more. Then cooked grains, that's a little more. Hummus, that's a little more. Avocado, that's a little more. Then you start getting into stuff like processed grains, like chips and cereal, granola, most protein bars. Then you're in moderate to high caloric density. You're talking 400 or 500 grams calories per 100 grams. Then you get into the nuts. Then you get into the peanut butter, and that's really high. Butter, I think, is really high. I think it's like 700 calories per 100 grams because it's just pure fat, right? Or lard. But who eats lard? You know, by the spoonful. I mean, if you do, don't. Anyway, you need to understand this basic law. Fruits and vegetables are at the bottom, and then grains, and then processed grains, and then pure fat at the top. This doesn't mean you should eat a very low-fat diet. I find those to be really hard to deal with. I think most people need at least 20% fat by calories. 30% is pretty good too, but 20 to 30% seems to be a good range for most people. I'm not a big fan, obviously, of these high-fat keto diets. It's so easy to overconsume on those kinds of diets, and then you really got to exercise portion control. So if you're on keto and you need to do portion control, just understand most of the food you're eating is really high in calories, other than the vegetables, of course. But so if you just want to eat nothing but vegetables, go for it. But understand that stuff like nuts, butter, olive oil, avocado, coconut, those are really high in calories, and you've got to exercise restraint when you eat them. Why is this important? Because when I eat something, I can assess the relative caloric density. Now, a lot of times we're not eating something that's just one food, but if I'm eating my favorite junk food, you know, my M&Ms, yes, I have my M&Ms. I know that I can only eat a few without breaking my budget. I'm not going to sit there indiscriminately and just eat M&Ms. Or trail mix, that's another thing. It's like peanuts, raisins, sometimes M&Ms, and maybe those peanut butter bites. I know intuitively that that's really high in calories, so I can only have, you know, a few bites of that. Whereas if I'm eating something like carrots or apples, I can pretty much eat as much as I want of that. That's the law of caloric density. Important to understand. Nutrition labels don't help much. If you want to know what the caloric density is, all you do is you take the calories, divide it by the grams in the serving, and you get your number. So if you're eating something like tortilla chips, that's going to be 140 divided by 28. That's 5 grams per calorie, or 500 calories per 100 grams. That's really dense. Peanut butter is like 570 or 600. My last tip for you is eat less processed food and more whole foods. I know you've heard it before, but processed foods are really easy to overeat. They're not designed to satiate hunger that much. I don't eat M&Ms for hunger, okay? I eat M&Ms because I like M&Ms, okay? And I'm honest with myself about that. But I factor that into my budget. And I don't eat the whole bag like I used to. But processed foods, or what Michael Pollan calls edible food-like substances, I think that's how he called it in Defensive Food. Edible food-like substances, meaning, yes, you can eat them. Yes, they taste good. Yes, your body can digest them. But they don't have anything else other than a lot of calories. Not that calories aren't important, but you can get your calories from better sources. And the processed food is deliberately manufactured to make you eat more. They hire chemists, they hire scientists to make the foods have a certain texture, have a certain taste, that melt in your mouth feel, that bliss point that they're looking for. They spend millions of dollars and hundreds of hours looking for that perfect food. Whoever developed the Oreo was a total genius, because Nabisco has made billions and billions of dollars off that one cookie, and they're always looking for that next Oreo. So just keep that in mind. When you're eating processed food, it's really easy to overeat. It's really high in calories, and it doesn't satiate you, and it makes you crave even more. So it's like this triple threat. Do you have trouble eating smaller portions? And if so, which foods are harder to eat in reasonable quantities? Let me know below. If you liked this video, then you're probably going to like one of the other two videos that you see on the screen. Click one of them, and I'll see you there.